What is going on, everyone? Nick or Catalyst here. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel and clicking on the video as always. I hope that for those of you who have just gotten their hands on the beta today are having a good time with it, and if you're not, make sure that you go and give the devs feedback so we all can get the game that we as Battlefield players deserve. I know that I've been very vocal about my feedback, and I will continue to fill you all in on everything with this beta, good and bad, moving forward. But today we are going to be talking about settings, because I know that for those of you getting your hands on the game for the first time today, or I guess maybe yesterday whenever I get around to posting this, you all are wondering what the best settings are for Battlefield 5. Now, there are some of you that are probably saying to yourself, like, man, Cat, you are way jumping the gun here with the settings video. And true, the game hasn't even come out yet. This is just the beta, and well, that may be true. The settings are probably the most concrete thing about the game, as most of the settings will more than likely all transfer over to the main game untouched. And I say most because there is one exception here, and we will get to that later in the video. But for those of you who are watching this now, and for those of you that may visit this video down the line in the future when the actual game comes out, welcome to the video. And at the slim chance that something does change within the settings between now and then, I will make sure to let you all know in a separate video down the line. But with that being said, let's get right into it, shall we? So the first thing that you are all probably wondering is, how do these settings match up to Battlefield 1's settings, since I would assume that most of you are coming from playing Battlefield 1 in some capacity. And if there is one thing that Battlefield 1 got right, it's that it provided a very abundant supply of settings for us all to tweak and customize to our liking. Now, my video is only going to apply to console players because I do play on console, so if you are coming for PC settings, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I'm not going to be too much help to you all, but I would invite you to stick around anyways. But the settings in Battlefield 5 are very similar to Battlefield 1, but there are a few things that we are going to need to tweak here and there, and I'm going to make a disclaimer that these are my settings. They are very personalized to me. You can feel free to change them around to what you want to find your best settings for you, but for somebody who has been playing this game, or not this game in particular, but Battlefield for a long time, and as a higher tier player, I have a pretty good grasp on this stuff, so take this as more of a gentle nudge in the right direction more than me telling you this is exactly what you need to do, you know. And the first gentle nudge in the right direction is to turn off your controller vibration, because half the battle in having really good settings is disabling things that will make you perform worse and then enabling the things that will enhance your performance. And turning off the vibration will get rid of any excess vibrations from getting shot or falling or rolling or doing whatever that might throw you off in a gunfight. And now scrolling down, we move to one of the most personable parts of the settings, and that is the stick sensitivity. This is the sensitivity that adjusts how fast you can turn your player, and just like in Battlefield 1, the default sensitivity in Battlefield 5 is at 20%, and for me, I think that is way too slow, and it makes the game feel very clunky. So what we're going to do is we're going to jack up the sensitivity quite a bit, and I suggest for those of you who are used to playing on that sensitivity that you jump it all the way up to about 50%, and then climb up in 5% increments until you kind of hit that wall and feel comfortable with the speed that you're playing at. And for me, I'm still debating where that is, because in Battlefield 1 I played at 100% sensitivity, but in Battlefield 5 I think people are going to benefit more from having just a little bit lower sensitivity, so I'm going to say that about 90% is where I'm going to stop for me personally. And the reason for this is because Battlefield 5 is all about control, whereas Battlefield 1 was more about speed. You know, you had to have the speed to turn and snap when people were shooting at you in order to win gunfights. But the TTK of Battlefield 5 doesn't exactly allow you to do that as much as you think that it might, so you're going to want to be able to have more control over your character and thus bring down your sensitivity just a little bit more than maybe what you're used to, especially because we don't have random bullet spread anymore on our weapons, so we don't have that extra cushion of affording to miss a few shots while we adjust. So to wrap it up, I would say the ideal sensitivity is around 80 to 90. If you can play on 100%, that's awesome. I'm going to be spending time working up to 100% myself, but for now, let's stick around 80 to 90%. So moving on here, if you've been playing the beta, you might have noticed that when you are aiming down sights, your sensitivity while aiming down sights is very, very slow. Almost too slow, but there is a reason for this, and we are going to correct it right now. So in Battlefield 1, your soldier zoom sensitivity was at a 1-to-1 scale, meaning 100% was 100%, but in Battlefield 5, it is at a 1 to a 0.5 scale. So in the menu, it is saying 100%, when the reality is that you're actually playing on something that feels like 50 50% or half speed. So you are going to want to move this up over 100%, ideally anywhere between 125 to 150. I'm playing somewhere in the middle as of right now, but that is ideally where you want to be. All of the rest of the default stuff in the control section is perfectly okay, so we are going to move on to the control schemes. Now, there's only one thing that you should change here, and that is your soldier buttons. You are going to want to put them on alternate, and this will flip the button maps for your circle and your right stick, making circle melee and making your right stick crouching. And for those of you who are inexperienced with this, you will hate this at first, but this is one of those things that you're just going to have to trust me on this one, because having your crouch on R3 is going to allow you to slide more efficiently, and while it will allow you to be more responsive to gunfire. You no longer have to move your thumb while playing to quickly go prone when somebody shoots you. You can just quickly click in your sticks and you will do it so much more fast and so much more stress-free. This will also allow you to do some more advanced gunfight tactics like crouch shooting, but I'm not going to give away all of my secrets in this video. Maybe that's another video for another day. Moving on to the stick aiming acceleration, we're going to want to move this all the way down to 0, and what this is going to do is it will prevent you from overcorrecting your aim when you are trying to win a gunfight from the hip. This does not apply to aiming down sights. We already worked on that with the zoom sensitivity earlier, but what having stick aiming acceleration at 0 will do for you is it will basically place your aim right where you intend it to be. Now, this is kind of tricky to explain, but when you are moving your sticks and tracking your target or simply traversing the map, when you have stick aiming acceleration at its default, the game will actually overcorrect your movements based on how strong this acceleration is. So for example, and I swear this is the first time I've used math since my freshman year in college, but if you're trying to make a 180-degree turn, if you do it perfectly with aiming acceleration on, you won't end up looking at a direct 180 degrees. You'll probably end up looking anywhere between 200 to 190 in that range, just because the game is automatically overcorrecting for you. So with that being said, I think that's good enough of a reason to turn this all the way down. Now, the next major thing is the uniform soldier aiming. You are going to want to leave this on, but you are also going to want to change the uniform soldier aiming coefficient to 133% specifically, because this is what it was in Battlefield 1, and this is probably the best setting that you can have on it, because it makes everything feel a lot more under control and smooth. Without having this 133% your sensitivity that we made at the beginning of the video, well, that's going to feel really jerky, and it's going to bother you. Next, super important thing that we are going to cover is we are going to go down to controller, right stick, and see the center dead zone. We are going to raise this to 22% because this is again what it was in Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4. This is what you are going to be used to, so this is what it should be. I'm not sure why they changed it. Also, your axial, I think that's axial, axial dead zone is going to be changed to 15%. I forgot to do this when I recorded the gameplay, but this is also identical to what it was in Battlefield 1. Now, as for the rest of the dead zone, I don't mess with them because arguably the dead zones are the trickiest part of creating good settings, and too much experimentation will seriously ruin your gameplay and your gun skill. I've had people come to me and say that they aren't performing well, and you know, they're saying that their settings are changing, but it's not helping anything, and I come to find out that they messed with their dead zones way too much, and that was the reason why. So I would say to be very careful when changing your dead zones. If you're going to change them, commit to that change. Otherwise, I would advise you to just not mess with them, besides what I've told you to do just right now. The final thing in the control section is to bring your L2 and your R2 thresholds all the way down to 5%. That way, you don't have to press down as hard on your triggers in order to aim down sights and fire your weapon. This will help you increase your reaction time. Now, next to the gameplay section, here is where you get a lot of personal freedom. This is where you get to mess with your crosshairs and your hit markers. Now, for your crosshairs, I would suggest making this a very outstanding color. Most competitive players like myself either do pink or green. I have seen some people do like a dark blue, but I am very partial to pink because there isn't anything else in the game that is pink, so you have an idea of where your crosshairs are at all times because it just sticks out to you. Moving down just a little bit, you are going to want to turn off as many unnecessary icons and pop-ups as you can, almost like you're protecting against a pop-up computer virus. Anything that can distract you in-game, so award notifications right here, make sure to turn that off. Now here is where you can get a little bit creative for your hit colors. You are going to want to choose easy to see light colors. White blends into easily and is very easy to misinterpret whether you are hitting your mark or not. So Go for light, easy to see, bold colors. I've gone with light, blue for hits, green for headshots, and yellow for kills. Armor hit indicator doesn't matter as much because I think it's pretty easy to see when you do hit a tank, so you are free to do with that as you wish. Moving on down to minimap, since there is no 3D spotting in this game, you are going to be relying a lot on your minimap for information, so make sure that it is a little bit bigger than default so you can see a little bit more. I have mine set at 110 to 120 depending on preference. For infantry players, you should mess with the on-foot zoom radius and find what works for you. I really don't have a preference or advice for this other than it should be just a little bit bigger, not too big. For icon opacity, you are going to want to have all of these set to 100, considering it is very hard to see people in this game anyway, so we don't want to obscure anything in the game. Soldier auto leaning off. Soldier auto peeking off, because you don't want the game to automatically do it for you and have it get you killed by somebody suppressing you, as well as you may want to hide in the corner or around a window or in a door or whatever, and then peek when you hear somebody, not all automatically peeking all the time and then losing the element of surprise. Now moving on to a very important point, Autorotation Aim-Assist. This feature will be gone in the final build of the game for a very good reason. I will leave my auto rotation video on why this is so bad at the end screen selections. That is a really good video, so I would highly suggest you checking that out, not partial or biased or anything, but if you haven't already, go and watch that video to see what I mean. But this feature will be gone in the final build, so I would suggest you starting to play without it right now. Get used to it. Slowdown, I would suggest to leave on. Sure, you could become a god without it on, but that takes a lot of hours and time and practice that you may not have. Reload hint off. Hint system off. Again, we want to eliminate anything that might pop up and distract you. In sound, the only thing that I would change is the announcer voice to be in the native tongue. That way you can better understand what's going on and better plan where you need to go. Now on to the final batch of settings, which is video. Now brightness. This is already a very bright game, so you don't necessarily need to bring your brightness all the way up because people might start to get washed out, and it's already hard to see people in this game anyways. So anywhere from default brightness to about 75 is ideal. Field of view. Now this is really important. Battlefield 1's starting field of view was 60. And obviously this is 70 here, so whatever your field of view was in Battlefield 1, crank that up by 10, and you will get the equivalent. But with that being said, 70 is still extremely low, and it restricts your ability to see on the battlefield, and raising your field of view will also give you greater perceived speed and less perceivable recoil. And what I mean by this is with a higher field of view, you may feel like you are running faster, and you may think that you have less recoil, but the game, you really don't, because the game is just playing a mind trick on you. But boy, is it a damn useful mind trick, because it makes the game feel 20 times better after you mess with it. So I would suggest that at the minimum that you need to have your field of view at 84. For me, I have mine at 105. Motion blur, you are going to want to turn all the way down for obvious reasons. You don't want to have any blur while you're in a firefight. You are also going to want to turn ADS field of view on. This will apply your field of view that you just worked on to when you are aiming down iron sights. This is very useful. And the last few things I have for you today, all those film grains and extra visual stuff, turn all of those off. There's no reason to have them on. They don't do anything for you. All they do is just add extra visual crap to your screen, and trust me, you don't want that. It does not help you. The custom color settings. Now, this is normally for people with some sort of color blindness or visual disability, but I've seen some people experimenting with this, and I've actually changed my color settings to make it a bit easier to see people, because as of right now, it is still very hard to identify teammates and squad mates. So I switched the setting. It'll give me a darker and a bolder color so I can focus better on my teammates and squad mates. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the video. If you learned something, if you found this very useful or helpful, make sure you leave a like for me if you enjoyed the video, and if you enjoyed it that much, why don't you subscribe? It's absolutely free. We'll have more content on the Battlefield 5 beta, and of course the actual game of itself. Join me on the road to Battlefield 5. Make sure you turn post notifications on if you haven't already. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. My name is Nick or Catalyst, and I will see you all another time.